now we're going to get into step 4. So remember, from step 3, take a look at cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. Take a look at those two processes in terms of helping you work through the steps, okay? So step 4 is the moral inventory. So this is where people get really scared, and understandably so. So I'm not going to minimize it because it is a big deal, okay? We're basically going to go into step 4, and we're going to look at, so first we'll talk about resentments, okay? Because usually people out there are familiar with that portion of step 4, the resentment portion. Okay, so first we're just going to talk about resentments. So just like we're doing here, you're welcome to do that in your own life if you choose to work through the steps, is just do them one at a time. You don't have to be overwhelmed, but you can if you want. Okay, it's going to be hard enough anyway. So resentments. So the first thing is, who is our resentment? Do you want to do one, Darcy?
Sure.
Who do you resent?
Like a parent, say,
okay.
Or somebody. Yeah.
Okay. Let's not pick parents because they might watch these videos. let's say
like an old boss or something.
Okay, old boss. Okay, so we're gonna do old boss. Okay, OB. That's old boss. That's the who that we have resentment, and then the why. Okay, why do you resent your old boss? So and so.
He kept calling me on my, missed time and late and whatever behavior it was. That just pissed me off.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So the why, he called you out on your behavior, right?
Yeah.
Called you out on your behavior. Okay. So what part of that did that impact you? What part of you was impacted by him calling you out?
Well, that probably would be mainly ego, I would think.
Okay.
Ego, denial, or whatever.
Okay, ego, yeah. Pride.
Pride, yeah. That's...
Okay. Sense of security.
Yeah.
So we're just going to do a couple there. Okay, and so what was your part in that? What did you do?
It would have been the behavior, like being late.
Your part.
Late. Not all there when you are there.
Okay, late, non-attentive. Okay, you guys out there understand where we're going with this, okay? So we're going to look from here. So old boss, why the resentment? Well, he called me out on my behavior. What was hurt? Ego, pride, sense of security, just to name a couple. And then your part in it, late, non-attentive, didn't work very hard. We'll just say he was lazy. We're making this up, obviously. Darcy has never been lazy in his life, okay? But so we have our part here, and then here at the end. What could we do differently next time? Okay? Now the reason I don't say what should we have done differently is because there's nothing you can do now. So what can you do next time? What can we do differently next time? If I want to go to work and I don't want my boss to think that I'm lazy, that I don't care, that I'm basically just there for a paycheck, well then I can act that way, right? Or I can act as if I do give a shit. So that might be the alternative, right? Actually being helpful, useful, does work. Okay? So that's really what the resentments are all about, and we want to really get down into this. So once we get to our part, late, non-attentive, really what that tells me is selfish, dishonest, manipulative. Okay, and we could go down the list, right? We could say irresponsible, we could say all kinds of things. We won't say those things about Darcy though. We'll just say those things in general, because none of those apply to him. So we're just trying to look at our part. So once we get over this side, we forget all about what they did, okay? Because we're going to focus on our part. The only thing we can do anything different about next time is our part. We cannot force a boss to be better. We cannot force an ex to be better. All we can do, and we can't even force change here. We just have to apply ourselves here and hope that some of the changes that come out of that are useful. They will be, almost 100% of the time. Darcy, does that make sense for resentments?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay. So we won't spend too much more time specifically on this one. We're going to move into the next one. I want to make this as simple and concise as possible. Because until we open back up again and do open groups, this is the best way we got to go. Okay? So resentments. Then the next one is we'll use fears. Okay? Most people do a fears list. So we do, what are we afraid of? I will say, what was my favorite one from back when I was practicing? Commitment. I was afraid of commitment in every form. So what did I do to like try to make it through those fears? Promiscuous. I was non-committal, obviously. It was non-committal, promiscuous, avoidance, dishonesty. I basically did whatever I could, okay, to make myself feel a little bit better about being afraid of stuff. I was afraid of pretty much everything when I came in. Okay, so that's how I handled it. I handled my fear of commitment in this way. So dishonesty, so pride, all that kind of stuff came into play to try to mask the fear, right? So instead of that, what am I going to do? How do I do different now? Okay? Well, what I can do differently in my life instead of going back to these old behaviors is I can absolutely look into a new behavior, okay, instead of an old one. So instead of trying to control everything, I need to step back, meditate, or whatever gets me out of the way. Okay? So by the time we're done these videos, you're going to be like, oh my God, his catchphrase should be, get out of the way. It absolutely should be, because it goes through my head about 100 times a day, if not more than that. Get out of the way. Okay, so we got the fears. Does that make sense, Darcy?
Yep.
Okay, so some of the things you might be able to do with fears as well is you might want to get counseling. Maybe some of your fears are coming from a very real place in you, and it's important to investigate those things, understanding as best we can where they come from. Okay, so how do we do that? We can get counseling, talk to friends. Choose your friends wisely who you choose to talk to, because not everybody is as compassionate and understanding. But yeah, do something different. Instead of going back to our old ways of selfishness, really that was what I used to deal with my fear, was self. Whatever I could fill inside me to make me feel less afraid of that, right? When in reality, I had nothing to fear as long as I stayed away. But of course, when I would get together with somebody I really liked, that's when the fear comes out. It doesn't come out when you're not with somebody, because there's nothing to be afraid of at that point. So we got resentments, we got fears, and now we're going to look at harms done. Harms done to others, okay? Now, some of these harms done to others will be on your resentment list, because sometimes we go back and forth with somebody, right? Or with people. That's cool. If they're already on your resentment list, leave them on there. But I don't know about you, but I've heard some people that didn't do nothing to me. So this is where those people are going. Okay? Who? What did I do? Who? What did I do? What part of self? Did I rely on? What can I do next? What can I do differently? Okay? So, who did I hurt? What did I do? What part of self did I rely on to get those things done? And then, what can I do differently now? Okay? We want to try to bring in a solution. Okay? Throughout the whole process. So, harms done to others. Let's see. What can we pick here? Who did I hurt that didn't do nothing to me? Oh, geez, there's so many. Okay, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. But what we'll do is we'll just pick, You pick somebody out there. I'll pick, all right. We're just gonna use name X. What did I do? I lied all the time. Okay? This person never did anything to me. So we have to remember. I am thinking of a specific person, but I'm not going to say the name. Okay? What part of self did I rely on? Dishonesty. I relied on selfishness. Manipulation. Control. Etc. I lied all the time, used her, and the list goes on, right? So anyway, what I want to look here though is what can I do differently today? That's going to keep me from doing this again, which makes me feel horrible, right? And I don't want to feel horrible, but I should feel horrible for what I did. Okay? Eventually I won't feel horrible about it anymore. What can I do differently? Well, first thing is be honest, right? For me, that was the foundation of almost everything I did incorrectly. And by that, I just mean in an unhealthy way. It started out with a lie. Almost everything in my life started out with a lie and then got worse. So I want to be honest. And then I want to be fair. Okay? I want to act out of principles. So that can mean a lot of different things. But it all starts with honesty. Okay? Does that make sense, Darcy? Harm's done. So this is for harms we've done to others that aren't on our resentments list, but that we have done. So if I stole from some store or something like that, it would be the same thing. The store didn't steal from me. The store didn't make me steal it. Okay? Even though I told myself it was their fault for me stealing because they make things so expensive. That does not necessarily make it true. Okay? That was just bullshit. So store X, okay, I stole. What part of self did I rely on? Obviously all of these above and above. So pride, you can add some greed in there. I want what I want, sense of entitlement, right? Once we start talking about stealing and stuff, then we can start breaking down what it means to steal. Okay? What it means to steal is it means you're greedy. It means you're jealous. It means you're envious. It means you want something that you can't afford, but you want it anyway, so you take it. That's how it was for me. Okay? So, what can I do differently? Obviously, only buy what I need, what I want and need. And again, honesty is going to be the foundation. Okay? Honesty. But that's my choice, right? Okay, so now we're looking at sexual conduct. Okay? Sexual conduct. Now, sexual conduct it can also be wrapped up in your resentments. It could also be up in here if you just didn't separate it because it wasn't sex related, that's fine. This is specific for sex conduct, right? So what we did, what happened, etc. Okay? What part of self? What can we do differently? What can we do differently in terms of being intimate? Okay? So it's similar, basically the same outline. What we're getting at here is we want to look at what we did. Okay, you realize here we didn't put anything that they did. We're not putting anything down here for them. This is all us. Okay, so I'll make an example. Okay, thinking back, their ex-girlfriend, long time ago. Okay, what did I do? Okay, I lied for sex. Okay, I said I liked you when I didn't. Okay. I said I liked them, but did not. Did not. I simply wanted sex at that time. Okay, so that's what I did. I lied for sex. I said I liked her when I did not. And so what part of self did I rely on? Well, lust, of course, pride, selfishness, sense of entitlement. Because I'll be honest, I say sense of entitlement because back then, I'm just trying to be honest with you guys and remember, back then I didn't think it was a problem, okay? I didn't think it was a problem to do this. Towards the end of my drinking, I started to realize how much of a problem it was, but it was still, I was not very good at it, at doing it the right way. So anyway, so lust, pride, selfishness, sense of entitlement. What can I do differently? Obviously, be honest. So, and that is exactly what has happened in recovery, is I've become more and more honest with even my sexual conduct. With all of these areas of my life, I want to become more honest and more accepting of the facts of these things. Okay? So these are the facts. This is a shitty thing to do to another human being, whoever it is. It was a shitty thing to do and I did that. Unfortunately, I wish I could say that was only once, right? So now I can be honest, I can be compassionate, okay? I can be understanding. Okay? We can just build on that. So how is that, Darcy? For someone who's never seen these steps like this, how does that sound?
Well, it's very easy to follow. I mean, it's pretty much literally step by step.
Okay. And it makes sense?
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing with that seems to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I've been doing it.
Yeah. Honest with self. Okay? Now, this is going to seem like a simple thing, but some of us didn't even know what the truth was when we came in. I was one of those guys. I didn't know exactly what was true and what wasn't. I had told so many fucking lies that I didn't know what was real and what was true. Step 5 is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it's a big ask, okay? So step 5, we're asking you to tell yourself, tell someone else, and disclose to the higher power if you even believe that's there. Otherwise, if you don't believe in the higher power aspect of it, that's fine. It's about sharing it with someone else. Now, what that can do for us in step 5, okay, what sharing with someone else, share with other human, one of the things that can happen with that is shame can lessen, okay? Guilt can lessen. Lessen. So we're not necessarily going to feel perfect afterwards. Some people have sworn by feeling wonderful and like lighter, and I didn't feel that way after my first one. I felt overwhelmed and I felt burnt out and broken, right? It took a long time to get through it, and I had a lot of stuff that I didn't want to talk about ever that I had to get through. Okay, so some of this stuff will lessen by telling someone else, because I'm no longer ashamed when I realize I can tell somebody. Okay, now find the right person. Okay, find the right person to tell, and that the rightness of that person will depend on you and what you're looking for. Confidentiality is my number one. If I'm going to do it with somebody, I have to. For me to be comfortable, to be truthful and honest, I have to ensure that they have a confidentiality clause in terms of whatever they do for a living, especially when it comes to hearing people tell these things. Okay, so confidentiality, trust. Sometimes I'll trust people who may not have the same confidentiality, and I still might not share my story with them. Okay, just because this is a pretty important one to me. Trust is all very important. Understands. I'm going to seek out someone who understands the program. The program / process. Okay? Understand what we're doing. Why are we doing this confession? Why are we bringing up all of that dirt and darkness in step 4? And then why are we having to then present it to someone else? Right? These are good questions. And you don't have to do anything that you don't feel comfortable with. What I've experienced from other people doing this, I have been a 5th-step listener now for 12 years, maybe a little longer than that. And one of the things I see many of the things that I'm writing here are what I see at the end of the appointment, okay, when people are getting ready to leave. Up here is what I was getting at. This is what we're looking for in terms of the right person. This is some of the stuff that I feel happens. Okay? The light comes on. Maybe just a bit brighter than it was, but the light comes on behind our eyes. Okay? So we just want to make sure we're following as best we can, finding the best person possible for us to share our intimate secrets. Okay? So we want trust. Now some people say they don't want to see not someone they see every day. And that's cool. I can appreciate that. I prefer to do it with people I don't see all the time either. But that's most of the time it's because of this. I don't see them all the time because I have no need to see them all the time. And when I do, it's usually for this purpose. Because that's how I do it. I go and try to find someone who understands as best they can what we're trying to accomplish by doing this part. Okay, so not someone you see every day, that might make it easier for you, but then again, you might flip that. It might actually make it easier if it is someone you know and someone you trust, right? Because you see them every day, you know them, that's cool too. I'm not telling you how to do this. What I'm telling you is how I do it and what works for me the best. And what I've seen from other people doing their 5th steps with me, telling me their 5th steps, okay? The light comes on, shame lessons, guilt lessons, eye contact. That's one of the other things I noticed right away, even in the same room before the people leave, is eye contact changes. Much more willing to make eye contact, and the eye contact is softer, not hard. So there are some things, tangible things that happen during that time, right? So I think that's good enough for step 5. Darcy, do you have any questions about step 5?
No, I think that's pretty good.
Pretty self-explanatory? Perfect. Okay, welcome back. I'm David Lurie. So now we're going to talk about just a little bit of a break in the steps, and we're going to talk about stress and anger. Okay, we're going to talk about them in connection. The reason I usually talk about them together is because they both raise up similar symptoms in the body. Like when we get angry and when we get stressed, we operate on similar wavelengths, especially if we're not able to manage this stuff very well. And up until now, we'll just assume that the way we've been managing is drinking, using, maybe eating, maybe having sex, maybe doing whatever it is we're doing to manage our life and to manage our stress and anger, right? So it's really easy for me back in the day when I was drinking to say I'm not angry. I wasn't. I wasn't angry at all. Usually I was pretty mild-mannered. But the reality was the anger was burning underneath and I wasn't addressing it. Just like stress. So we can tell ourselves that we handle stress really well, but we don't, until we can look at it clearly, it's really hard to tell how we're actually managing, right? So what happens when we get stressed, Darcy? What happens to you when you get stressed?
Physical reactions, like sweating, nervousness, shallow breathing.
That's right, physical response, reaction. It's the same with anger. We get a physical reaction. Now, I don't know what your physical reactions are, but they're going to probably be a little bit more specific to each person, depending on obviously what a person has learned in terms of coping, but also in terms of how it affects their body. It might be similar or it might be different, right? But most people can talk about things like, what did you mention for physical reaction?
Like shallow breathing.
Yeah, your breath, shallow, and it can be over here. You get really hyper-focused, right? Hyper-focused or obsessive. Because one can turn into the other really quickly, right? So if I'm stressed, what I'm looking for is a release for the stress. Something to allow me to feel better, right? And that's what I used to be doing, looking for something to make me feel better instantly over and over again. And then it becomes obsessive because I don't know when I'm angry and when I'm stressed. And to be honest with you, back when I was practicing, I didn't know whether I was angry, sad, happy, glad, stressed, feeling fine. I had no concept of how I felt. I've been sober for a few years, and I'm still trying to figure out how to express my feelings in the proper way. So I can tell you, this is like a journey. I don't know if it's lifetime or not, I'm not dead yet. But the reality is, it's been a journey. And it's going to continue to be a journey so long as I'm open-minded. And I learned some ways to cope with stress and anger. Okay, so we can talk about it like this. So stress is when something happens that's unusual, right? Like whether it be bad or good. It's unusual, unexpected. Okay? Much like anger. Now, we can tell ourselves we know some people are going to piss us off because we know that if we go and interact with certain people, we absolutely might rub each other the wrong way every time we encounter one another. That is fine. But to actually get angry, usually it's unexpected. Now, when I say unexpected, it comes, the way we're talking about this, I want you to apply it as you're doing your 4 and 5, okay? We're talking about the stress and sometimes the anger, and even sorrow, it can be masked as anger. Sadness can mask anger. We have told ourselves, not you necessarily, but lots of us have told ourselves we cannot be angry. We are not allowed to be angry. I was not allowed to be angry in the house, so I did not learn how to be angry properly. So instead, what I became was a passive-aggressive, and then I would explode, right? It was a passive-aggressive, and then I would explode. Unless I was given the opportunity to not be passive-aggressive prior to exploding. And in that case, that meant I was exploding somewhere else. Okay? That means I was taking that energy and doing something destructive somewhere else in my life, right? Not necessarily specific to this. So usually, by the time we come in, our coping habits or strategies, okay, are usually unhealthy. Not all of them. So some people our ego will allow us to attach to the healthy ways that we cope, telling ourselves those are the ways we cope. But it will be blind to the fact that we're also maybe drinking, using, behaving. Okay? We might be behaving in these ways and not even see them as unhealthy in ourselves. So one of the things I see quite often, hearing 5th steps and stuff, is that we're all pretty quick to talk about other people and what they did and didn't do, what they do and don't do, right? But even as we're talking about them, we can then change over to talking about ourselves almost without it's like a seamless transition, right? It's almost like our brain doesn't allow us to see the same unhealthy mechanisms in us that we see in others, right? This is another reason why I suggest people go through this process with somebody who can help you, right? Even if it's a group of you, you do it together, that's great. Now I have to tell you, speaking of groups, this is really weird for me doing this without people here. So if you didn't realize that it was weird for me, I'm telling you now, it's weird for me. It's probably weird for Darcy too, because I just ask him randomly questions. He has no idea what I'm going to ask him, because I don't know what I'm going to ask him. So coping strategies we're looking for are healthy, right? So I'm going to talk about some simple ones that we can do right away, right, to help us. So breathe. Okay? Breathe. Be mindful of your breath. Let yourself return to breath. Okay? Breathe. Exercise. Okay? Exercise could be anything. Today, for example, I'm at the church. We're all still locked down, no gyms, and I'm like, I know I'm gaining weight, so I'm like, oh my God, I need to do something, right? Because I'm sitting around way more than I normally do. I can't go to the gym. So I ran the stairs here at the church because I knew that my body was like needing some exercise. So I just decided to do it, and I did it, and it was good. I don't know how many I did. I wasn't really paying attention. I just wanted to go through the process of exercise to get my mind on something else, right? So whatever we can do, meditation, okay? Reading. Art. Writing. Art. So I have a good friend of mine who refuses to have a hobby. He refuses because I pointed out that he has no hobbies. So ever since then, now he tries to tell me what his hobbies are. And I appreciate it, because it's been a couple years now since we first started joking around about it. But basically, let's engage in our hobbies. Why don't we engage in our hobbies instead of destruction, right? So instead of obsessing over here, which is a coping scale, by the way, going into obsessing, we tell ourselves we're thinking about it, we're processing it, but really what we're doing is we're just reliving it, okay? The difference between instructive and reliving it is sometimes hard to see, right? But usually obsessing is just a painful, repetitive beating of the same subject, trying to change it somehow, right? Whether it be to obtain it or to get off of it. It's usually, not always. Okay, so coping schedules, coping strategies, art. Remember with reading, I'm going to say entertainment, so even TV, movies, your favorite shows, right? Everything we're going to start to do, though, in a healthy way is going to be moderate. I know that's going to be like a word that not very many people understand. I didn't understand it either. How do you become a moderate of things? Well, entertainment-wise, you make a plan how many you're going to watch in a night. Look, right now during the pandemic, I know that probably sounds ridiculous, so don't even bother doing that right now until you absolutely can, okay? Because oftentimes, we need these other things to fall in line so that we can stay focused, right? So what we really want to do over here, this is going to be excessive, okay? If you can think of what you're doing as excessive or not excessive, then you're probably going to be safe in this zone here. Now, there's also all kinds of things that happen to us alcoholics and addicts when we sober up. We're no longer getting a bunch of dopamine and chemicals that we're used to getting. Oftentimes, this was mine, exercise. I'm going to say have sex. I'm going to make sure I put consensual, okay? Consensual with other consenting parties, okay? Make sure that's consensual, because if it's not, then it's not healthy, obviously. We want to try to stay as healthy as possible. So when I say sex, sex is healthy. It's natural. Okay, it's normal for us to do it. It's a part of our makeup as human beings, right? So we just want to do it in a way that's healthy. What does that mean? It means we don't lie for sex. We don't use sex to manipulate. We don't have to use it to control our partners if we're doing that. I'm not trying to tell you what you're doing at your house. What I'm suggesting is, all of these things can be good if they're in moderation, okay? Really, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for moderation in our behaviors, right? Our diet, okay? If you're finding you're not sleeping very well at night, maybe you're drinking caffeine too late in the day. I don't know, but we're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at what we're putting in our body. Obviously, during a pandemic, you can take a look at what's in my body. I can tell you right now, it ain't good. Right? And I'm fighting every day to get a little better, but it ain't good. Okay? So during this time, in our recovery here with step 4, we just want to make sure we're ready for what might come. Okay? So I've heard several step 5s through the years, and honestly, being aware that you might be stressed, you might leave being angry or really down. So in this case, the physical reactions might be a little different after the 5th step, but the reality is the coping doesn't change. No matter what the scenario is up here, the coping stays the same. Because how we're going to cope is we are going to find balance. That is our mission, right? When it comes to coping, we want to find balance. Are we ever going to find perfect balance? Probably not. But what we want to try to do is find enough balance and then maintain. Okay? Now the reason we want to maintain balance obviously is when something is balanced and maintained as such, it doesn't tend to go offline as much, right? But we're just going to take a deep breath, okay? We're going to look at all the different things that we can do that are positive. I'm going to say I almost forgot this, fellowship. Now fellowship just means friends, right? Friends and family, people who you enjoy being around, people who enjoy being around you. That's fellowship, right? When we can share together in our struggles, but also our joys. And so I think that is about it. So as you're doing your step 4 and 5, try to build a nice schedule for yourself during the day, especially if you can right now. If you have the ability to go for, say, a walk or a run, do push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups if you have a pull-up bar, whatever it is, whatever suits your fancy. You could do yoga, right? Because yoga, some people don't think that's exercise. I do, but I'll put it here anyway. So yoga, okay, breathing, meditate. You can pray. If you're a praying type, pray, because I tell you what, prayer only works if you do it. Otherwise, it's useless. So the rest of this stuff, just trying to put it into a little area so that when we get stressed out, which can be a positive thing as well, right? You get a new job, you buy a house, that stress can be overwhelming. And we're not used to looking at the positive stresses in the same way as the negative. But it's okay if we do, because we will experience some very similar symptoms when we're positively stressed. Okay? All right, so any questions, Darcy? Seems simple?
Yep.
Simple and clear as mud.
That's right.
All right, well, good luck to you guys.